The year is 1916 and the Germans need to make an advance on the Western Front so then they can knock out France and then go solely for Russia. But the place they decided to attack was the gateway to Paris. Many know what I'm talking about. If you do not, you will know by the end of this statement. And this place that they decided to attack was called Verdun. Now, Verdun in World War I was known as the gateway to Paris. If Verdun fell, then Paris would fall and the French would lose the war. But Verdun had an advantage over all the other French cities on the German border. Now, the aim for the Battle of Verdun, which is what the German commanders said, was to bleed France white. They were going to exhaust every single man of the French army just to win the war. The Battle of Verdun thus came with an artillery barrage on the city of Verdun, which done heavy damage and gave mediocre casualties. But where it really came was taking the forts. Now, there are about 4 forts around Verdun. One of them notably was Fort Vaux. Well, we'll get to them later. One of the forts, which the Germans advanced on, was heavily defended, heavily armed. But as the Germans infiltrated and started skulking round all the hallways, as soon as they found the French soldiers, they immediately surrendered. One of Verdun's forts had fell without a single shot fired. This put a bad picture onto the French. Now, during the middle of 1916, the French had appealed help from the British and Russians to relieve the French at Verdun with offensives such as the Somme and the Brusilov offensive. I will cover them in my next 2 videos. But the real tide of the battle turned when the Germans decided to attack Fort Vaux. Now, only 400 French soldiers were up in Fort Vaux. Barely enough to hold back the German army. But they did. Now, the French forts were not like your forts of olden times where they'd be stuck up in the ground with a moat, probably some cannons. These were built into the ground. These were made to last. And the 400 French did so. The artillery barrage on Fort Vaux done little to soften it. But when the troops came, it was slaughter. The French just kept mowing them down. It got to a point at the siege of Fort Vaux where supplies were running dangerously low. There was no clean water left, so what did the French resort to doing? They resorted to licking condensation or drinking their own urine. This was only as a last resort. By the end of the siege of Fort Vaux, less than 100 French soldiers had been killed and roughly 10,000 Germans along with them. This was the tide of the battle. The French now started making advances. They'd retaken the fort that they once lost without a single shot. They'd taken all the hills surrounding Verdun. Verdun was safe. By December of 1916, Verdun fell silent. This was the longest and the bloodiest battle of the First World War, claiming over 500,000 to 1 million casualties, both on the French and the German side. The Germans aiming to bleed France white had failed. But I guess it was just down to those offensives on the Western and Eastern fronts. So, that was an overview of the Battle of Verdun and the Siege of Fort Vaux. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe if you do not want to miss a single history video on this channel. I will be doing history from now on, along with alternate history if you've got any ideas. and I will see you next time for one of the offensives that the French called upon to relieve distress at Verdun.